Hi, everyone. Welcome back to No Dumb Questions, the Insurify podcast about straight talk on coverage, claims, and savings. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Julia. And today we're answering another question that comes up constantly.
Yes.
How do I compare car insurance quotes?
Yeah, it can be a little intimidating at first, but it's one of the best ways to save money on car insurance.
Seriously, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, because like one company will promise the cheapest car insurance. Another says they've got the best discounts. And I feel like sometimes I'm just like left wondering and staring at a screen being like, am I saving money? Or just kind of setting myself up for a headache later.
Yeah, I know. So today we're going to go over how to compare quotes, how to do it quickly, and how to get the best rates.
All so that you can compare quotes confidently and pick the right auto insurance policy for you.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the basics.
Yep.
Okay. So comparing quotes sounds simple, but only if you understand the terms inside those quotes.
Right. So the most important one is probably going to be policy, like your insurance policy.
That's so fair.
When you buy your insurance, it comes in a policy, and then you're the policy holder.
Yes.
Very fancy.
Yes, exactly. The policy is your insurance plan, the legal contract, right, between you and your insurer.
Yeah.
And when you have a policy, you are the policy holder, the holder of the policy.
Yes.
It all makes sense.
Next up is the premium, obviously. So this is what you're going to pay every month or semi-annually or annually, depending on your payment structure that works for you. So insurers will show you multiple options because sometimes you can get discounts for paying annually because you're paying everything up front. So it's something to consider, although it is a big expense.
Yes. And basically when you go to compare quotes, you'll see those premiums as quotes or rates.
Yeah.
And quotes are subject to change. So that's usually like when you've put in your information, you see a rate. That's like the insurers or the site's like best guess based on the information that you put in. But that might shift when they actually do like the credit pull or whatever that might look like, right? So it's really good to request quotes, whether you're on an insurer's website or by using a comparison tool, and then use kind of the closest possible estimate.
Yeah. So it's really going to depend on your unique situation. And you want to be very honest when you're requesting quotes so you get the most accurate quote the first time. So now we're going to talk about your coverage limits. So this is kind of what we talked about last episode with the liability stuff. So your coverage limit is the amount that your insurance company will pay after you submit a claim. So if you have $20,000 in property damage coverage, after you pay your deductible, your insurance will cover that up to $20,000. So anything more than that, you're on the hook for.
Yes. Your deductible is, like you said, kind of what you pay out of pocket before that insurance kicks in on a claim. And a higher deductible, so more money out of pocket when that happens, usually means a lower monthly rate because you're taking on more of that risk up front, right? And a lower deductible will mean a higher monthly rate, but it means you're covering less of the upfront cost yourself if you do have to file a claim. So it's kind of a balance there. You have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of what will work for you.
For sure. Up to everyone. Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about risk and what that means in the insurance world.
Yes, risk is a big one.
Yeah.
Insurers use a bunch of different factors to assess how risky it is, basically to like insure your car / just insure you, right?
Yeah.
So safe drivers have a lower risk and therefore often have lower rates, where drivers maybe with a speeding ticket or another kind of infraction on their record are viewed as a little riskier to insure, right? And they will likely see higher rate.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why it's so important to compare quotes, because every insurance company weighs your factors differently, and it's really down to your individual profile.
Yes, right. So now let's talk endorsements, which feels kind of fancy, but you'll also see these called add-ons or extras. Basically, it's like what's not like the core part of your policy, but that could be optional coverages and perks such as accident forgiveness, rental reimbursement, gap insurance, which we talked about a little bit in the last episode. And some insurance companies include them automatically, but others don't. So that's kind of why you need to make sure you're comparing the right thing. So having that coverage in a policy can make the price look different, even if the base coverage is the same.
Exactly.
So just make sure to check what kinds of coverages they're including in your quote.
Yeah. So when you're looking at auto insurance quotes, you want to look beyond the dollar amount to your coverage limits. You want to look at the deductible and any extras, like those extra add-ons. And so you're comparing everything apples to apples.
Okay, let's get into answering how you actually compare car insurance.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, cool. So now that you know all the important terms, let's talk about how to actually compare quotes.
Okay. So you want to collect multiple quotes, right? And shoot for at least 3 to 5, we recommend.
Yeah, because like we said, every insurance company weighs your risk differently. And so you get a variety of quotes so you know which one's going to be cheapest.
Yes. And there are actually a few ways you can do this. So you can do it just by going to like an insurance company's website, right? So you put in your information and you'll get separate quotes. They'll be from that insurer. So you have to do this like multiple times to get quotes from multiple insurers. But also it can help you learn about like what coverage options are available to you from that insurer, right? Another way to do it is just going to an independent agent who can pull those quotes or give you those quotes from an insurance company or multiple and kind of help walk you through the process. So if you're less confident, if you feel like you have tons of questions and you don't just want to like go online, talking to a person can be really helpful.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
depending on kind of how you prefer to do that, that can be a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
If speed is the name of your game, using a comparison website is by far the fastest and it's just super convenient. So you can basically put in your information just once and then it will pull quotes for you from a bunch of different insurers using those same factors. So that's why it's a time saver.
All right. So just make sure you're comparing the same thing, right? Like whether you're doing full coverage or you're doing liability, just make sure all those coverage limits, those deductibles, those add-ons are all the same. So you're comparing like to like.
Yeah, exactly. Just like you said, check what's included. Some insurers include extras, like we were saying, like that roadside assistance or rental car coverage, but others don't. So just really make sure to check what's in the quote.
So kind of an underdog one is customer service. It's really important to consider that when you're looking at claims because the cheapest car insurance isn't a bargain if they ghost you when you need help from them and you submit a claim. Yeah. So look up reviews, like third-party reviews, look up on review websites, see what common complaints there are and see what other customers' experiences are.
Yes, so important. You're right. That's really slept on sometimes. Another one that we did also talk about in the last episode was discounts. You want to factor those in. Those can save big money. And quotes won't always show every discount up front. Sometimes it depends on like what information you've put in or just kind of how their quoting system works. But you could qualify for safe driver, good student, multi-car, like multi-policy or low mileage discounts, right? So it's always good to ask an agent or ask, make sure you're getting what you qualify for. And it's great to ask the question.
Yeah, you don't want to lose out on those savings.
Exactly.
And you also want to think like long term. So some policies last for 6 months, some last for 12 months. So having a 6-month quote can allow you to shop again sooner, but your rates might go up sooner. It like really depends. So think about how long you want it to be.
Yes. And your rates can also go down.
It can go down. Like, that's the important part.
Part of thinking about that. Yeah. So it's important to consider what your life is going to look like, right? In 6 to 12 months. Yeah. And it could affect your rates for like age. I feel like we talked about this a little bit last time that like rates are more expensive when you're young, right? But they drop significantly when you turn 25 and after. So if you are going to turn 25 in 4 months, maybe don't get a 12-month policy because that's locking in those like pre-25 rates, right? So get a 6-month policy, which means you'll get to reshop sooner and get those savings even sooner.
Yeah. And like every one situation is different. Yeah, so, make sure you're considering all of these different factors when you're going to compare quotes. And also another thing to consider, like, are you going to move into an apartment? Are you buying a home? So you could bundle your car insurance with your renter's or home insurance. So a 6-month policy could allow you to get discounts sooner. But like we said, everyone's different. Up to you.
Yeah, I do that and it's great. Highly recommend. And if you don't want the hassle, right, of checking every 6 months, then lock in for 12 months. That's also fine. It really just all depends on what works for you because everyone is different. It's all up to your personal situation and your preferences. Yeah.
So it's just important to weigh your priorities when you're comparing quotes because cheaper doesn't always mean better.
So important. And actually a friend of mine recently did some comparison shopping and I think he had narrowed it down to 2 quotes. Yeah. One was $140 a month. One was $160. Yeah. And he thought like, okay, cool. Easy choice. Go with $140. $20 cheaper a month. Great. Right.
Makes sense.
Right. So, but when he looked closer, I think the cheaper quote had like a much higher deductible, which is that amount that you pay up front. I think it was $1,500 and no rental car coverage. And the $160 quote had $500 deductible. So 1/3 of that and rental car coverage was included. Yeah. So for him and what was going to work for him, he went with the $160 quote because it could save him more if he had to submit a claim. And that was what worked for him in his budget. You know what I mean?
For sure. So parent quotes, it's about finding the cheapest car insurance for all of your priorities priorities, right? So it's finding for your situation, what kind of car you drive, when you want to renew, what coverages you want. And I mean, like if 140 is technically cheaper, but 160 is going to be cheaper in the long run because you have that lower deductible. You won't have to pay for a rental car if you have to submit a claim. So really look at the whole picture to find what's best for you.
Yeah. I feel like I cannot emphasize enough how much this is like not a one size fits all situation, right? Yeah. Like it really, really depends, which is why comparing is so helpful because it helps you know like what's the right fit and what's out there. Okay. Let's get into some frequently asked questions. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Amazing. Okay, let's go through some frequently asked questions that we get about comparing car insurance quotes.
All right, let's do it. So what information do I need to get an accurate quote?
Okay, you will need your driver's license number, vehicle information like make, model, the VIN, the vehicle identification number, your car's mileage, your driving history, which would basically mean like, you know, have you had any infractions on your record, accidents, speeding tickets, etc. And usually details about your current policy, like who are you insured with, what coverage do you have now, kind of thing. So basically kind of why we say this is that it's really helpful to have all of that information on hand when you're doing this, because it can be frustrating to be like, darn it, I didn't have this. Now I have to do the whole process over again, right? Yeah. So having that accurate info helps ensure that you have a more accurate quote. And then it's way easier to compile like all of that together beforehand, so then you just get through it smoothly.
So will comparing car insurance quotes hurt my credit score?
No, definitely not. Getting a quote only involves what they call like a soft pull on your credit score. It will not impact your credit. So get as many quotes as your heart desires.
Speaking of which, how often should I compare quotes?
So once a year is a good rule of thumb. But again, like we were saying with the 6-month to 12-month policy, it kind of depends on whenever your policy is going to renew, right? And rates change really frequently. So sometimes by like 10 to 15% year over year, which is not nothing. So you don't necessarily want to stick with the same policy for 5 years without checking at least annually.
For sure.
Right.
All right. And do I have to cancel my old policy before I switch?
No, don't do that. Actually,
don't do that.
Don't cancel your policy before you switch. No, buy the new policy first, then cancel your old one. And I'm talking, it can be an overlap of like a day or less, right? You can do it quickly so that you're not paying for 2 at once. But what you want to avoid is a lapse in coverage or like any time between those 2 policies, because that can make your next quote actually more expensive. Yeah.
So why are quotes from different car insurance companies so different?
Oh man, because each insurer weighs risk factors differently. You know, it's just how it is. So one might put more emphasis on credit history, another on zip code, like where you live, another on your driving history, right? And that's why auto insurance quotes can vary by hundreds of dollars, really. So yeah, that's why it's really important to compare.
So is online comparing safe?
Yes, absolutely. But as with anything, it's really good to use trusted websites.
Yeah, so it's important just do your research before choosing your comparison tool or before choosing which insurance companies you want to pursue. Because no one wants to get just random information in their faces all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we'll be back after a quick break.
Julia, are you tired of paying too much for your car insurance?
Yeah, who isn't?
Well, here's the straight talk. With Insurify, you can compare quotes from over 120 top insurance companies, all in one place. And you could save up to $1,100 a year, and it only takes about 10 minutes.
No phone calls? No hidden fees? It's 100% online and it's completely free?
Yep, Insurify has already helped more than 10 million people compare, including us. Now it's your turn to see how much you could save.
Click the link in the description to get started today.
All right, time for some myth busting.
Ooh, love it. All right, here we go. Okay, myth or fact? All auto insurance quotes are basically the same.
Myth. Every insurer uses its own formula, like we just talked about. So every quote is going to be different.
Okay, love. All right, myth or fact? The cheapest quote is always the best.
Myth, because remember, like if an insurance company has a bad reputation on claims, even though the quote's cheap, you're going to end up paying more because you might not get as much on your claim and, you know, yada, yada. So you got to weigh all the pros and cons for your individual profile.
Yeah, in a perfect world, right? But hey, here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so myth or fact? It's cheaper to pay for your policy all up front rather than month to month.
Usually fact. Obviously, like that's a really big upfront payment at times, but most insurers will give you a discount if you pay upfront rather than month to month.
That can be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Myth or fact? Comparing quotes takes a lot of time.
Myth. I mean, it can take like 5 minutes if you use a comparison tool.
Myth or fact? Your rates will go up if you switch insurers.
So this is a myth, right? Because, you know, insurance companies weigh things differently. Can go up by 10 to 15% per year, like we said. So switching your insurance is actually more likely to save you money in the long run. But, you know, make sure don't cancel your current policy before you get a new one. Get that new one, then cancel your current policy.
Yes, we love. Okay. myth or fact, last one. You can compare quotes as many times as you want.
Yeah, fact. It doesn't hurt anything. You can compare quotes as often as you want, and it doesn't hurt your profile, doesn't increase your chance of getting higher rates. It's just a helpful tool.
Fact is right.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, let's talk about that action plan.
Let's get into it.
Amazing. All right. Now that you've got all the facts, here's your plan for comparing quotes.
All right. You're going to gather all your policy information, including your coverages, limits, and deductibles.
Yes. Use a comparison tool or go on company websites and get at least 3 to 5 quotes.
Yeah. And you want to make sure all those quotes have the same limits, deductibles, and coverages. So you're comparing apples to apples.
Yes. And then check each company's customer service and claims reviews, like you said. So important.
And then narrow down your top quotes. And if you feel so inclined, contact an agent and ask about any discounts you might be eligible for.
And then pick the quote that balances cost, coverage, and service.
Yeah, it's really that easy and a really easy way to save. So the bottom line is comparing quotes is the best way to find car insurance that balances price, protection, and ultimately peace of mind.
Yeah. And think of it like shopping for a car, right? You don't really buy the first car you see on the lot. You compare models, you compare features, reviews, and then you make the choice that feels right.
Yeah. And it's just good to know that you're not overpaying and you're also not underprotected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's it for today's episode of No Dumb Questions. Thanks for tuning in.
Don't forget to subscribe. And if this helps, share it with a friend who's also tired of overpaying for insurance.
Yes. Oh, and send us your questions using the link below. We might answer yours next.
Until next time, drive safe and save money.
You are listening to No Dumb Questions, an Insurify podcast. This content does not constitute personalized financial or legal advice. This podcast is written, edited, produced, and recorded by Sarah Getman, Julie Taliesin, Riley Hines, and Sydney Harrell. Compare insurance quotes by clicking the link below.